No one really knows how old millennials are. I've heard ranges as wide as 1979 to 1995 and as narrow as 1981 to 1994, while the range for Gen Z has a hard start at 1997. So if you're like me and one of those unlucky fools who find themselves born in the mid-90s range where no one really knows where to put you, they usually just lump you in with millennials anyway, well, I've got a little story for you. Our time is now, and it doesn't really matter if you identify as a millennial, Gen Z, or just say truck the whole system. I'm trying something a little different this time around, as nostalgic games seem to perform a little better when reaching out to the homies. And it'll also help prove my point a little later down the road. I was 28 when I was first promoted to manager in 2023, and yes, you can do the math to figure out how I'm officially UNC status now at this point. However, 28 was undoubtedly young for a manager in my line of work. I'd wager it's young for any line of work, really. I worked hard to get there and it paid off, and I'm thankful for the opportunities I've been given. But there's a natural friction when you're a highly paid, highly respected individual in any field where your peers are old enough to be your parents. I've been fighting against that ideology my entire career, really, as I was just 26 when I was promoted to supervisor for the first time, and no one on my team was under the age of 50. Supervising people old enough to be my parents had its struggles, but it also allowed me to come to some critical realizations. In the fall of 2023, my boss was finally hired on. With me being a manager, my boss was a director. I was 28 and he turned 30 that November. So here we are, the both of us very young and still in these very high-profile positions. Though our philosophies on proving our youthful capabilities in the working world couldn't have been more opposite of each other. I embraced my youth in my position, and I like to flaunt it in an almost obnoxious way. I go out of my way to look young and make sure people know it. There's an unmatched thrill that comes with flexing on these people who don't think you're old enough to drink, much less be a team manager. I'm a gamer, so I make gaming references to my younger employees while my peers roll their eyes, both because they don't understand and also because they're disgusted by how I can relate to my team. I'm familiar with modern working philosophies, quiet quitting, job hoppers, and maintaining a healthy work-life balance. I not only understand these philosophies, but I openly encourage them. My philosophies as a leader more align with the modern working culture than that of the outdated leaders who've been butt-printing in a chair for the last 3 decades. All I ask out of my team is a solid 8 hours. I don't want you bringing your home to work, so I don't want you bringing your work home either. It's a two-way street. And I'm constantly lobbying for better and more pay for my team. Sometimes I win, but more often than not, I lose. But this life is hard enough without a greedy manager trying to cheat you out of your dues. And all these decisions and actions that I've been taking as a manager only serve to burn up my peers because it's change, because they don't understand it, or because they flat out disagree. My boss, on the other hand, is my polar opposite in that regards. 2 people, same generation, similar ages, but different working profiles. He dresses old. He styles his hair in a standard way, and he conducts himself in a manner that more agrees with the current regime. He'd rather people assume his age and maturity and judge him based on those assumptions. His work philosophies neither directly conflict or agree with my own, nor do they agree or conflict with the current regime either. He simply exists in a way of self-preservation, because he's incredibly thankful to be his age and in as high a level of a position as he is. Regardless of the path taken, we both had to do some extreme actions to be recognized and respected by our teams, but one method breeds change while the other breeds consistency. A phenomenon that most employers probably don't recognize is the value in promoting younger people. Our lack of years means that we have less experience. That goes without saying. But it also means that these businesses can pay much less for these higher tiered roles. And if they hire a younger leader who's anything like me, then they'll be hiring someone who will shake things up for much less pay than the guy who plans to sit down and coast. Chances are a younger leader is going to be more hungry for change and making an impact than their older counterparts. So, a younger leader allows a business to both hire a highly motivated person for cheaper, and that younger person will crank out much more work, harder and faster, than the other possibly older hires. It's a win-win for the business. More work for less money. Who doesn't want that? I think my organization realizes that, but I'm still surprised how many businesses out there don't see that. I took my first supervisor role making $20.50 an hour, while my peers were making $30 or more per hour. Why was I at the bottom of that pay range? My age/lack of experience. What work did they get out of me in that time? Well, I totally revamped a whole warehouse while my peers coasted on cruise control in their respective seats. Hiring a young leader is a clutch move for any business wanting to make big changes on the cheap. And you should leverage these advantages in your interviews as you're going for higher paid positions. But all these realizations kind of culminated for me when my boss and I went to a tour of another facility that we'd recently acquired. We met up with the director of that facility, and that was a real moment for me. Here we were, 2 directors and a manager, the leaders and future of this organization. And how old were we? I was the youngest, at 28. The director of the new facility was 29, and my director was 30. We were all around the same age, the same generation. We were the future of this organization. This little meetup and tour sparked the biggest realization in me. Now is our time. All old people were young once. Every younger generation took the reins on the working world at some point in time. And they ruled that world until they were old and hating the younger generation, bird-dogging them for their spots. It seems all so plain and simple here as I speak it, but it's a cycle that persists since the modern working model has existed, and it often happens naturally without any sort of realization. But that day, touring that facility, with me being one of the powers to be, served as that realization for me. The future for us is here, and it's our turn to take this working world. We look at our doom scroll devices and see all these videos about nostalgia, old Call of Duty games, and the good old days, and so many of us miss the meaning behind that. Time has marched on past our youth, as it will always do. We're caught in that weird middle ground of remembering things that are getting old, but not being old ourselves. That's our golden time. Our time. We need to see and recognize these things. I was 15 when Black Ops 1 came out, and that game is 15 years old now. It's been long enough. The Gen Xers are aging out and looking for retirement. Those younger millennials and older Gen Zers are primed to take their place. A responsible person in their mid to late 20s should have resume enough to flex on these jobs, and hunger enough to take them. So take advantage of the time, seize the opportunities, and don't be afraid to rule this working world. Or just rule the modern world in general. YouTube is an entire career path that didn't exist 20 years ago. Now's our opportunity to continue to shape what that means as well. We're all used to being the young guys in the working world, the know-nothings of the working world, the party all night and come to work hungovers of the working world. We became so used to these assumptions that we didn't realize when people stopped assuming those things about us. But I got news for you. As time turns and burns, it takes that youth right from you. This old Call of Duty is evidence enough of that. Something that was new and contemporary in our youth is now old, outdated, and nostalgic. That should be a sign that we've seen enough to seize these opportunities. Be awake and be aware of what's happening. If you're old enough to reminisce, if you can look back at the times that were and it hits with a bittersweet sting, then you're experienced. You've experienced enough to take the lead. Don't let chances slip by because you're being deceived by your own youth. Take this world, my dudes, because now is the time for taking it. Now is the time for us. My books are available on Amazon, links in the bio. If you were to check them out, I'd be forever grateful. I suggest starting with Dusty Little Wastelanders or anything published after those, as they feature my strongest writing yet. Now go out there and start some changes today, bud.
Hell, you undead maggot.